Hello, gals and guys. It's your host, Phil Larson, and this is your Motivational High Five on habits. Let's do this. There's this quote that says, things start out as hopes and ends up as habits. I'm going to modify that a little bit. I'm going to say healthy habits begin as hopes. Anything that's a habit, the more it is a habit, the more your brain just is used to it, that it goes on autopilot doing it. Well, with bad habits, or maybe I'm going to call it unhealthy habits, I feel like going on autopilot with your brain is really easy to do. Healthy habits require persistent intention driven by hopeful vision. If you think of a healthy habit keeps in mind who we want to be. And so if we walk that back, are our current habits doing that? And maybe some are, and try to tune in to any no as an answer to that question. If there's any habit that isn't keeping in mind who we want to be or who we want to become, then it's not a healthy habit. For me, scrolling endlessly through Facebook's newsfeed does not get me to where I want to be. But being enslaved to my phone has become an unhealthy habit for me. Even if if my phone screen catches a glimpse of a light, in its reflection or something, my brain is triggered to think, oh, someone texted me, or I got a notification, I gotta check up on my phone, and I reach for my phone. My brain is on autopilot, and sure, that's not the most unhealthy of habits, but it's certainly not the most healthy. There's no vision in that habit. There is no hope for who I want to become. One of the things I want to become, is a composer who scores music for feature-length films. And so releasing a new album of compositions of mine is a helpful step, which I did. And if you want to support this podcast in any way, just go to any online store or streaming service like Spotify or iTunes or Amazon and search Phil Larson Believe. The new album is called Believe. And for me to develop habits that push me in the direction of who I want to become, it is important for me to continually put myself out there creatively and musically. And it helps me form those habits. And on a more serious note, if I think back at my life and I pinpoint the most unhealthy habits, they're habits that keep me isolated. At our core, even if we believe in creationism or if we believe in evolution or maybe a little bit of both, at those core beliefs and scientific findings, we find that humans are social beings. And it is living out of that need for social interaction that we continue to live and thrive. And so the most healthy habits embrace our social nature, and the most unhealthy habits drive us to isolation. So another thing to consider when determining whether a habit is healthy or not, is it driving you towards healthy connection, towards beneficial relationship, or is it driving you into hiding? Because the truth is, habits send us in a direction. Tuning into our habits, and we all got them, all kinds, healthy and unhealthy. Tuning into those habits means waking up to this reality. If we continue down the road we're on, we're going to end up where we are headed. If you continue down the road you're on, you're going to end up where you're headed. Is this where you want to be? Is this who you want to become? And maybe coming up with ways and plans of actions to start new habits feels daunting. But I want to go back to that quote at the beginning. Can you hope? And this takes us all the way back to episode 1 of this podcast, released in January 2016. And that particular episode recorded at the end of August 2015. And the common thread to change is hope. Envision yourself, who you are now, where you've come from, and where you're going. Do that as we close this episode, keeping those things in mind. Where we've come from may involve some shame. Where we're going doesn't have to. And we choose now, like every episode, to not let it. We choose to do a new thing. maybe a harder thing. We choose to hope. And we do that by looking at a reflection of ourselves in the mirror, no matter how hard it might be to look at yourself. But do yourself a favor today. Choose to love yourself by seeing you, who you are now, and envisioning who you want to become. And when you find that reflection, speak in the first person. Say this to yourself. Today, I let my hopes of a better future self drive my habits of the present. Friends, I woke up yesterday morning at 6 a.m. not wanting to run and continue to train for my marathon. Even though I am raising money to dig wells in countries that need it. And as I was laying there trying to convince myself to get up, I got a notification that Elise, who listens to the podcast, sponsored one of my marathon miles. And I got up and I ran. Healthy habits invite people in. They don't encourage isolation because we are social beings. And so once again, I want to encourage you to join the little community that is coming out of this podcast. It's called Internal Motivators. It's a Facebook group, a private Facebook group that you can get to through internalmotivators.com. And when you do that, I'm going to ask for you to show up, however you are. Your hopes, your frustrations, your dreams. And when you get there, there is a bit of an instruction on how to introduce yourself. Please do that. How to do that is under the description label on the right side of the page. It helps to involve people when developing new habits. But ultimately, like I've said, you have the most say in the direction your life is going. Is it where you want to end up? It starts with you.